Good evening. Here we are. It's your Cinco de Mayo edition of the Fox 6 Sports Blitz with Lily Zhao, Brandon Cruz, Tim Van Born, and we appreciate you being on that list as well. Here's our starting lineup. Milwaukee Bucks season comes to an end. Interesting week for the Milwaukee Brewers. They take on former skipper Craig Counsell. The Green Bay Packers rookie minicamp kicks off this week. We have our high school hotshot. We have Say What. In other words, don't go anywhere.
For me, what gives me confidence is my work, the work that I put in, and I'm willing to put in work this summer. I think I have guys around me that they're willing to do so. I saw how Dan was after the game. I saw how Chris was after the game. I saw how Dak was pissed and thought we could, be better and do better this year. So I know they're going to put in the work. I'm going to put in the work, and that gives me confidence. Now, what's going to happen, I don't know. But I know that we are going to work. I'm going to work.
And that's all you can do now because it is time to hit the off-season. Brandon, you were with the Bucks through this playoff run. When Giannis is talking about the game, he's talking about the elimination game there, which was Game 6 in this first-round playoff series. How was the mood there during the game as it became apparent that the Bucks season was going to end, and then in the locker room afterwards?
You saw resignation. Like, they felt that they had a shot, especially with the way they played in Game 3, forcing an overtime, coming back home and winning Game 5. They went into that game with a lot of confidence, thinking they'd force a Game 7. But as things played out, they just could never stop the Pacers at the end of quarters, especially the end of the second and the end of the third quarters, turning what was a close game into a big Pacers lead. And they were just never able to overcome that, and they ran out of gas, really. They didn't have a deep bench at that point. And you also didn't have Damian Lillard at 100%. He had missed games 4 and 5. And then came back for Game 6. He just didn't have enough in the tank. And I think what you saw there was all these hopes and expectations that they had from the beginning of the season that really kind of changed as this season went on, and then obviously in this series.
Again, it's a first-round playoff series, as the likes of T.J. McConnell are carving up the Bucks. But Doc Rivers had a great line, Lily, about if you want to be a title contender, either you have a happy ending or a happy landing, or it's a plane crash. And he's right about that. So this didn't go happy landing style for this Bucks team. But you're talking about first round against the Pacers, who are not a playoff juggernaut. What's your takeaway?
A tough season, and knowing that injuries kind of derailed their chances yet again. Obviously, Giannis Antetokounmpo thrived against the Pacers in the regular season, dropping over 42 points. He's a leader of this team. He kind of covers up a lot of the mistakes that we saw the Bucks kind of have in their losses to Indiana. You don't have Giannis, right? But then who else steps up in the scoring? You have Chris Middleton playing well and doing the most he can to kind of shoulder the load offensively. Dame not at 100%. He tried his best as well. But I think kind of the biggest issue was their bench. They didn't have enough bench scoring. They didn't have enough role players stepping up where they needed to. And when you look at that last game being outscored 50-10 from the bench, that's not going to get it done, especially when you have a second unit out there that wasn't scoring when Chris and or Dame were not playing. So looking at this team, though, they just didn't have enough offensive firepower, and there just were kind of lapses sometimes where they weren't scoring. The defense was lax in the paint. They weren't defending the three. So a lot of these issues that we saw in their losses kind of just manifested in 4 more. So that's kind of what buried the Bucks, and unfortunately they couldn't get their leader back to kind of cover some of that stuff up. And now in the offseason, it's what will this team kind of look like, right? Indiana's a young, fast team. Do you want to get more athletic? Do you want to get younger guys on the team? That's kind of what they have to figure out to kind of be contenders next year.
And before we get into that offseason, I did want to be sure we touch on the Patrick Beverley situation, Brandon. His interaction with the fans at the end of the game in Indiana, and then in the locker room, the comment about, do you subscribe to my podcast? And Beverley has now apologized to that reporter in ESPN about that. How big of a mark is that on the way this ended?
I don't think it's a good thing, period. I think it's a bad look. I think it shows a player not necessarily in control of his emotions, and then also not treating a female doing her job in that locker room with respect like he was treating the other people asking them questions there. And it was a really uncomfortable situation, both on the court, throwing the basketball twice at a fan, and then denying this producer from interviewing him in a media scrum. It just was really distasteful. It was unprofessional, and there's no place for that in any game, let alone the NBA. And I think it's one of those things that just reflects badly upon the player. And then, you know, it does kind of branch out to the organization as well, even though it's all on the player for his actions. But he is representing the Bucks at that time, and it goes national because it was an undignified response to somebody being a professional doing their job when he wasn't doing that on his end.
A lot of summation there for sure, Brandon. And how wide is the window here for the Bucks before we get off this topic? Their playoff championship window. How big is it?
It might shrink if the Bucks can't figure things out, right? I think everybody reiterated this is a very important summer for this Bucks team. They get a full offseason with Doc, Giannis, Chris, and Dame getting healthier as well, but also, again, building around those guys. Giannis pretty confident that this core can get them another championship. It's just a matter of who are they going to be, surrounded with in terms of players, young guys, or new acquisitions.
And I'll tell you right now, the one thing that we did see in this playoff series that was huge was how big Chris Middleton is to this team, because Chris Middleton carried this team. He was the guy that could do everything, win or lose. Without Chris Middleton's ability, this team doesn't win a game. And to me, that is something to look at for next year, because all we do is talk about Lillard and Giannis, but you have to throw Middleton right into that mix. He's as important as those guys to their success next season.
Well added. All right, here we go. Since we're on the Bucks, we'll give you a chance to weigh in. It's halftime, meaning it's time for the Fox 6 Blitz Insta-Poll. You can go directly to the question right now if you scan the QR code on the screen, or you go to fox6now.com. And quite simply, we want to know what grade you would give the Milwaukee Bucks this season. A, B, C, D, or F. We're all familiar with the scale. What answers are you going to provide?
What was it like seeing Craig on the other side this time?
It was weird. I mean, obviously we saw in the spring training, but it's different now that, we play in the regular season. But, we all love Craig, and, we wish him nothing but the best.
The Cubs get the best of the weekend, beat the Brewers 2 out of 3 at Wrigley Field. And what a week for the Brewers, let's be honest. We have ejections, we have suspensions, we have reunions, of course, with Craig Counsell. All right, you take it. What do you want first there? Reunions, suspensions, ejections?
Well, I'll speak to the ejections because I know Brandon was there for the reunion, so I'll defer to Brandon for that. But just kind of a crazy week for the Brewers, right? I feel like nothing really kind of went their way this week, right? You start out with Aaron Judge in that Yankees series and no interference call. Then you go to the Rays series, which kind of blew up from there. You have backswing interference. You had the glove incident. Then you had Freddie Peralta, Pat Murphy toss, the fight with Abner Uribe. So there's just a lot going on this week that wasn't really pertaining to baseball in terms of the outcome outside of that backswing interference call that, that did mess up the game and the outcome there. But a lot kind of not going Milwaukee's way and helping them win games. And then you go into the Chicago series with Craig Counsell, and they drop that as well on the road. So just a very unfortunate week, though. And right there, though, when Freddie Peralta, he is not coming, or he's going to accept the suspension, right?
Start
that 5-game.
Yeah.
And accept that starting on Monday. So it just was a tough go for him, because I know guys are like, he was not intentionally throwing at Jose Siri, but obviously the ump disagreed. So just a lot of kind of craziness going this way before the Brewers-Cubs series.
Before we hear from Brandon about the last major, we saw Pat Murphy there. Do you think Murphy and the Brewers get respect for the umpires, or is there something going on here?
Maybe the latter, right? Because when you're thinking, maybe if this was a bigger organization, you're not having the umps come up that way, right? And I think when you're looking at every single game, there was something with an umpire. And even, the glove incident with Thiago Vieira, the ump is putting on the glove and kind of smiling. So I don't know if it was just, it's the Brewers, we can kind of get away with it. But I know Pat Murphy had none of it. He was kind of voicing his displeasure with Chris Guccione there. So I know he wasn't happy with it. The crew weren't happy with it. And obviously one call kind of took away their ability to potentially tie in or win a game.
So how was the Murphy-less What was the reunion like for Craig Counsell and the Brewers at Wrigley Field?
Well, and Craig Counsell, his personality is the same. He downplayed it. It was no big deal to him, just another game, he says. And in some ways, I think he's right. It's a game at Wrigley Field. He's not back in Milwaukee. But at the same time, he's facing guys that he's known for a long time, that he was the manager of for quite a while. And some of the younger players he watched and knew what their track was to get to this team, and now they're there. So it was special. It meant something. But all in all, it was another day game at Wrigley Field that the Brewers were able to win. I think it was neat for some of the players to be able to see him before the game and to just kind of interact with him for the first time since spring training. As you saw there, Willie Adames was talking about how weird it was now that it's a real game to see him in the other dugout. William Contreras saying a similar thing. But all in all, I think these guys now are happy that that's behind them. They do know it's going to come again on Memorial Day when the Cubs do come up here to Milwaukee. The first time Craig Counsell will be back home for a game as a manager of the Cubs. But all in all, I think it was a nice time for guys to reconnect a little with him and then go about their business and take that first game, which I thought was something they were pretty excited about on Friday in the clubhouse after the win.
Yeah, and the Brewers and the fans are so wired into this. The Cub fans are wired into this, too. Right. They know this storyline as well, so that certainly plays into things. So the Brewers lose 2 of 3. They're back on the road for the Royals. Then they have the Cardinals coming in here. Have you changed your view of where this team is headed with all these injuries that they're trying to overcome or not?
I don't think I'm changing my view, but it's still a difficult road for this team, right? Guys are injured. Joey Wiemer is injured. You talk about their starting pitching, Freddie Peralta with that suspension. So it's kind of just a lot of odds and ends and pieces as this Brewer team. They need to just kind of come together. Everyone gets healthy, but I know that's tough for an entire MLB season. But I don't think my views changed just yet. They struggled against Chicago's starting pitching. Didn't get one hit against either of their starters in all 3 games. So they were coming up big against Chicago's bullpen. But I think the hitting is still there. I think this is still a good team. It's just a matter of can they get their arms right, knowing that Freddie's suspended and obviously the odds and ends of a summation of pitching.
Peralta out, DL Hall on the list. Wade, a lot of homers given up this weekend, just like last weekend against the Yankees.
Yeah, and it's kind of amazing so many home runs were hit because the wind had been blowing in today and on Friday, yet the Cubs were able to do stuff the Brewers weren't. I think the biggest concern is the health of the starting pitching and the fact that they have to keep using this bullpen. The one thing I wouldn't be surprised at is look for Matt Arnold here. I think that we may see some kind of moves here or there in the next couple of weeks to kind of address this issue if they cannot get everybody healthy right away, because this is now that window where I think you're going to start to separate things. So I'd be very interested to see what he's doing right now, the calls he's making, the interest he's showing or getting shown to bring in some pitching help at this point in time. I think that's going to be a big deal.
We're way over time on this, so a yes or no. Trevor Bauer, would you sign him?
No.
Robert Gasser.
Coming up this week.
Yeah.
The Milwaukee Admirals dropped Game 2 against the Stars in the AHL playoffs. Texas up 2-0 in the best-of-5 series. Admirals now have to save their season. That's Wednesday night downtown. We're back in a moment with Say What.
Do I vote? I don't even know if I vote for her.
You really want to ask that question out of the gate?
I just like getting people's attention with something.
My significant other think he's sexy, so.
Wow. That was interesting. Was that Taylor Swift?
There's always a little, friendly banter, competition going on. Somebody mentioned it today in a meeting room. Or one of our coaches, I think it was Coach Ansley, was like, y'all gonna be okay in this room? Is there still beef in that Civil War? But I don't know. I won last year, so that's all I'll say.
He just got that killer mindset, tenacity. He just approached everything like a dog. Really, he's just a dog. That's why I like dogs, and he's a dog. So that's it.
A lot of love, even with the Civil War in the Packers locker room as the rookies were there for their minicamp. And Tim, when you look at this, what are you trying to take away from these initial impressions from these rookies?
These impressions do matter. This is the chance of the coaches to see them in person. It's for the evaluators to see them in person. Okay, we picked these players, we like them all. Let's see what they look like. And athletically, who's going to jump off the page? You're not really doing much in these workouts in this type of camp, but you're showing what you can do athletically. And you saw speed, particularly from the linebackers, and that's one thing I think this defense is going to try to have as a hallmark is speed under the new coordinator, Jeff Hafley.
And what do you think the rookies are getting out of this as their first experience as professional football players?
Well, I will say there was a funny video that surfaced from one of our affiliates that Javon Bullard didn't really know where to go. He kind of got lost trying to find his way to the practice field. So just finding their footing, right? They're in Green Bay for the first time for probably a lot of them or all of them. Just kind of getting their footing, figuring out where things are, seeing the faces of their future coaches, talking to their fellow rookies, and just kind of acclimating to what life in the NFL will be like.
And they call it rookie orientation camp for a reason. It is an orientation. It's okay, this is how we dress, this is what we do, this is where we go to practice, Javon, and stuff like that, which is going to become matter of fact, but it's not yet.
How important is it then for the coaches now with this new staff being together on the field in these workouts.
And that's one thing that I think doesn't get enough attention is the way these coaching staffs interact with each other. What are the dynamics? Who's going to the vocal leader? Who's going to sit back and kind of observe things a little bit? They're kind of feeling each other out on the coaching staff as well. It's one thing to sit in meetings and watch tape and say, I like this. All right, now you're out there actually coaching players. I remember a few years ago when Patrick Graham came in. He was a linebacker coach at the time. He's gone out. He's been a defensive coordinator in the league around. And the eyes were just open to this guy because the Packers had not had a profane, real presence like that on their coaching staff in years. And even someone like Aaron Rodgers, like, that linebackers coach is so you're certainly, everybody is taking stock and registering those first impressions.
Did anyone say anything that jumped out to you either as outlandish, as shocking, or okay, I like where he's going as a player?
Well, two things. I think we heard it from Tim Sportscast, if you guys tuned in, is Marshawn Lloyd saying Super Bowl, right? I mean, you want these rookies to think, hey, we're gonna make that leap and play for a Super Bowl. And then I did love the fact that Jordan Morgan, their first round pick, said he got starstruck kind of talking to Jordan Love, who reached out to a bunch of rookies as well. So just kind of being like, it's Jordan Love. So it's funny kind of being like, Jordan's in his second year as a starter, but he's already kind of garnering this aura that these rookies are very impressed with.
It is very interesting to see a little time off. Then they get back together in a couple of weeks. Well, let's check in on our Instapoll question. Remember, you can go directly to it just by scanning this QR code or just go to our website, fox6now.com. We want to know what grade you would give the Bucs this season. Right now, the majority of you are saying it is a failing grade in a big way. We'll see if you still think that way come the end of the show. When we come back, we have our high school hotshot.
Welcome back. This Catholic Memorial junior has jumped headfirst into his passion, and since then he's also flipped his way to plenty of success. Here's this week's Fox 6 High School Hotshot.
Hi, I'm Brady Hiddle. I'm a junior at Catholic Memorial. I dive there and at the Schrader facility in Brown Deer, Wisconsin. My favorite memory right now is probably winning state. It was just a good season to remember for high school, so yeah, definitely winning state. When I found out I won, I just reflected on everything I've been working for. Just all the moments with my friends. It just felt great to accomplish that after all the diving. So outside of diving, I also do G-Tramp, just all the freestyle trampoline stuff. It was a big part of my foundation for diving and just like doing all the flips and learning how to just move my body through the air. So G-Tramp is just backyard trampoline, that's what it stands for. It's kind of just freestyle trampoline, whatever, you can get creative with it. It's not like a set sport or anything, it's just kind of a hobby for now. So it actually all started, kept doing backflips. I told my mom to come in, she started recording them. It's just a hobby, I just want to focus on diving for now, but G-Tramp's definitely still growing. I felt like it was pretty easy, just having like form and like pointing my toes, everything from trampoline. It was nice to be able to like transfer all of that and just have like some like natural like talent in it. You kind of just understand like the flipping motions and just the height and the adrenaline. I'll do some trampoline drills for diving. Yeah, it kind of all came from G-Tramp. It was definitely a good way to express like my creativity through like flips and the sport. I just want to make a statement with my diving before I leave. Just really do something great with my diving and my career. I'm Brady Hiddle. I'm a junior at Catholic Memorial and I'm the D1 state diving champ. I'm this week's Fox 6 High School Hotshot.
And the work does continue for Brady. He'll be competing in the YMCA Nationals, and he's also invited to the University of Texas diving camp that's happening this summer. All right, well, we're going to have more on the Fox 6 Sports Blitz after this break.
Tough graders out there on the Fox 6 Blitz. Instapoll F for the Bucs this season.
Well, they can only improve, right? All right, well, it's a big week ahead for the Brewers. They head to Kansas City for 3, and then they're back home for 4 with the Cardinals, so it's a show-me state week.
And huge Game 3 for the Milwaukee Admirals, trying to keep their season alive against the Texas Stars. If they do, Game 4 will be on Friday at home.
Got 3 games listed there. We'll see how many of the Admirals get to play out of it, right? For Lily and Brandon, I'm Tim. Thank you for joining us tonight on the Fox 6 Sports Blitz. We always enjoy being here every Sunday night, and we always appreciate your company as well. We'll see you next week.